Patrick Bet-David shocks Piers Morgan with a certain specific statement. Guys, this is going to be a good one. I think you're going to enjoy it. You know, Patrick Bet-David and Piers Morgan, they're both smart guys, all right? I know Piers can be a little insufferable and a little bit British sometimes, but that's okay, guys. It's okay. It's a good clip, and I think we're all going to enjoy it. So we're going to get right into it. But first, everybody, please make sure you like our video, share it around, and yes, if you are new, subscribe to the Resist the Mainstream YouTube channel so we can keep bringing you guys this great content. For those of you who have subscribed, thank you so much for coming back. We appreciate you. As always, I'm your host, Darian, and let's get into the video.
So let me get this straight. In any sporting event, you're a fan of Ronaldo, you're a fan of Man U, you're a fan of soccer, you're a fan of rugby, certain sports we watch. What do players say after a loss? They say we have to make certain adjustments. You mean to tell me if in sports we make adjustments, if in business we make adjustments, if a negotiation doesn't go right, we make adjustments, if in parenting we make adjustments, if in our marriage we make adjustments, in our health we make adjustments, but not when it comes down to an assassination attempt on the president? That totally makes sense, because what's the big deal, right? It's just an assassination attempt. We don't need to make any adjustments. We know what we're doing. And then 3, 4, 5 days later, you want to deflect and confuse the American people and say, oh, it's Iran. Iran was really behind this and trying to get everybody to look this way instead of, why don't we investigate what the Secret Service got wrong? You know, there was something I was said the other day that I really liked, and I would love to quote who said this. The question was the following: how come the president doesn't fire anybody? Everybody bitched and moaned about the fact that Trump fired a lot of people. How come President Biden doesn't fire anyone?
I think it was Elon Musk. I think Elon Musk said it, actually.
I think Elon Musk said the fact that how come President Biden doesn't fire anybody? It's a very valid question. Yeah. In corporate environment, she would be fired like this,
also,
but unfortunately, this is politics.
Elon Musk knows a thing or two about firing. You remember when he got on and bought Twitter and then fired about, I believe, 80% of the staff right off the bat? And look at him now. You can't say he's a bad businessman. X is doing better and hotter than ever. Remember when the media was doing all that fear-mongering about that too? Ooh, Elon Musk, he fires a bunch of staff. Twitter's a disaster. They don't even know what they're doing now. They've got rid of everyone. Sounds like he just got rid of a lot of dead weight. You know what? Good for him.
Service, you have one job: preserving the life of the president. That is your job. You're in charge of a very large team. I mean, I once interviewed, and it was an incredibly powerful interview, Clint Hill, who was a member of the Secret Service detail on the day Kennedy got shot and killed. And he was Jackie Kennedy's personal bodyguard. He's the one you see jumping on the back of the car after the first shot goes off. And then he slightly stumbles. And he was very tearful with me, because every day he thinks about, had he not stumbled, could he have taken the second bullet and saved JFK's life? So it was a very powerful interview. I think there were less than 10 people on that detail in Dallas that day. That was how big the Secret Service protection squad was for the president. There's now over 300. I've been around Donald Trump when he's landed at Stansted Airport in the UK. It's unbelievable what goes on. And when he takes off, the whole backup security and so on. I've been at Mar-a-Lago when it's been swarmed with Secret Service and so on. What I found extraordinary about what happened at the shooting was, A, there didn't seem to be many Secret Service agents there, given where we are in this election cycle and how polarizing Trump is. B, a lot of them seemed to be female, and yet when he appeared at the RNC, he was surrounded by a lot of very large men and no women in sight at all. Who made that decision? Why did they make that decision? Are they acknowledging that the female agents who were there that day were part of the problem? And if so, why were they put there in the first place? And so on and so on. These are all incredibly serious questions. I agree with you. If that bullet had been literally half an inch one way nearer Trump's head, he'd be dead.
What I find incredibly interesting about all this is that this assassination attempt on Donald Trump, it basically showed what the logical conclusion of DEI is: diversity, equity, and inclusion, or as I like to call it, and many other people do, didn't earn it. I mean, it's ridiculous. You have Secret Service women who are there to protect Donald Trump, and they're not even half as tall as him. Are you kidding me? How are they supposed to cover him from impending gunshots? Not only that, if you look at the clip of that assassination attempt, did you guys notice how one of the female Secret Service agents is literally cowering away, doing nothing to protect the president, and is just scared of getting shot? Yeah, not a good look, especially when your job and duty is to protect the president. Look, guys, I'm just going to say it. This is a very controversial view. I don't know why it is, but Women should not be in these types of positions, whether it's Secret Service, policing, combat, etc. They're just naturally not built for it. It really is that simple. Okay, and people can get as angry as they want, say, oh, well, I know this woman who's stronger than most men. Okay, whatever. Let's boil it down simply. If a woman can pass the same standards a man has to pass, we can hire her. Spoiler alert, they're not going to pass it.
And if Donald Trump had been killed, all hell would have broken loose in America. I genuinely believe that. It would have been a tinderbox. And I think that we've very fortunately got to a place where he somehow miraculously survived. But heads should roll, and the first head should be the director of Secret Service. Let me move, Patrick, to another consequence of this, which is soaring support for Trump, both in the polls, but also just anecdotally. Just so many people I know saying, you know what, given the state of Biden before this anyway, and his refusal to pull out of the race despite clearly being unfit for the office now, Trump's act of defiance in standing up and putting his arm up to the air and saying, fight, 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 has really resonated with Americans who saw in a moment of unbelievable horror a guy who showed real leadership, real defiance, and real strength of character and real personal courage. That, to me, I've said this since it happened, in my estimation, has now propelled him back to the White House. I see no way, if he stays alive, and God forbid anyone else tries to copycat this, but if Trump is there on election day, he wins, doesn't he?
Piers is forgetting one very important thing here. In American politics, a month might as well be a lifetime. So much can change so quickly, and I think that's important to recognize. Trump getting shot, that was a huge change, okay? Trump getting arrested and indicted, that was a huge change. Point being, a lot can happen, even in 3 months before an election. A lot.
I think if Joe Biden somehow, some way was able to get the Supreme Court to amend the Constitution and allow a president to get a third term, neither a Bill Clinton or a Barack Obama in their prime could beat a Trump today.
Yeah.
Neither one of them. Neither a Barack Obama or Bill Clinton. However, that's assuming everything's going to be fair play moving forward. That's assuming it's going to be fair play, which we know it's not going to be fair play.
What more can they do, Patrick?
This is
let's think about this logically, right? Trump was, completely buried politically 18 months ago. And then the left decided to weaponize the justice system against him in the most ridiculously over-the-top manner. And the first case they used is the Stormy Daniels payment case, which was such a pathetic, low-grade thing to drag a former president through a criminal court over. The conviction got him another $150 million in 10 days in fundraising, and absolutely nobody took it seriously whatsoever. And it had no damage to his reputation or his popularity whatsoever. So that all backfired. They've tried to take him off ballots in various states. That hasn't worked. We've had someone try to shoot him now. That hasn't worked either, thank God. But they've literally chucked everything that they can think of, both the Democrats, the liberals, lunatics. I mean, you put it all together, this has been one of the most concerted attempts to thwart somebody becoming president again I've ever seen anywhere in the world. And yet there he is, standing now as the clear favourite to go and win. I don't think there's anything the Democrats can now throw at him that will touch the sides. I really don't.
See, it's good to say that, and it's coming from a great place of optimism. But then there are people that get paid to think about what the enemy would do to divide and conquer and play their own games. Look, the New England Patriots one year almost went undefeated. They were 16-0, but they lost to the Giants. So you can't sit there and assume that all these things are going to be perfect and we're going to win. Nobody's going to get in our way. That's not how this thing works. I think for me, you have to think, again, what is at stake for the left? What is at stake for the left if Trump gets in on a second term? Let's kind of talk about this. Elon Musk buys Twitter, turns it into X. We all saw Barry Weiss and Matt Taibbi with Twitter files. What did we learn about the involvement of the New York Post tweet a couple days before the election? What did we learn about Biden's camp communicating with Twitter at the time saying you can't allow this to happen? What did we learn about it? They were involved. So what if Trump gets in and all of a sudden brings in individuals to investigate FBI files? What about if there's CIA files? What about if there's DOJ files? What about if there's Merrick Garland files? What if there's all these files that we see with email that you can't just delete these emails because you're dealing with the government? What if we get access to that information? What would we really learn about this? Could this be one of those situations where, if you remember back in the days, where J. Edgar Hoover was frightened after going after the mob because they had certain intel on him as being a cross-dresser, and at the time that was frowned upon. So it's like, the mafia doesn't exist, the mafia doesn't exist, the mafia doesn't exist. Then all of a sudden, Rudy Giuliani goes and finds a professor, I think at Rutgers University, that says if you are going to take the mob down, you have to do with the RICO law. And then he comes in, and next thing you know, we see 240-something mob arrested, going in cop cars. Like, what just happened right now with this whole situation? What if that takes place? What if that's what they fear? What if they're worried all this stuff's going to leak? What if they're worried that RFK is going to join Trump's camp and he's going to go after Fauci, NIH, CDC, WHO? What if? These are things you have to consider. So if you thought this protection is at risk, Piers, question for you and your viewers. What would you do if you were the leader of the Democratic Party, knowing everything could potentially be exposed by the guy that has the following that wants that to happen? What would you do to prevent it from being in the office? And by the way, do you think you would stop after what just happened this past Saturday? I'm not going to be in a naive community and say, no, that's it, they're going to let him go in there. I think they're going to do whatever they can the next 112 days or whatever days are left to make sure he doesn't get in there.
It seems like PBD and I are in agreement that they're not done. And Donald Trump, you need to be very careful, Mr. President, because it is a scary world out there, as we all know. And I don't think it's going to get any less scary, at least not anytime soon, unfortunately. On that note, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the video. We really appreciate it. As always, be sure to comment below. Let us know what you liked and what kind of content you want to see next. Seriously, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and God bless.